Let's talk about a process that powers, well, pretty much all life on our planet. It's this silent, incredible green engine that's working all around us, all the time. Of course, I'm talking about photosynthesis.
And no, that's not an exaggeration. I mean it. From the sandwich you had for lunch to the very oxygen filling your lungs right now, it all circles back to this one amazing process. It is, quite literally, the foundation of our world.
You know, it's so easy for us to just say, oh yeah, plants use sunlight for food, but figuring out how they do it, that was a massive puzzle that took hundreds of years and some seriously clever people to solve.
So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to follow the clues, just like a detective story. A story that starts with something as simple as a candle in a jar and ends with us understanding how a plant can literally eat sunlight.
Okay, so our investigation begins back in the 1770s, and our first detective is a man named Joseph Priestley. Now, he wasn't even trying to figure out plants, really. He was obsessed with the air itself.
So Priestley did these really simple but totally profound experiments. He'd light a candle, stick a sealed glass jar over it, and poof, it would go out. He did the same thing with a mouse, and sadly, the mouse would eventually pass out. He figured that breathing and burning were somehow damaging the air.
But then, and this is where it gets good, he tried it again, only this time he put a little mint plant inside the jar with the mouse. And, you won't believe it, the mouse was fine. It kept breathing. A candle put in there would stay lit. The plant was doing something amazing.
And this was his big idea. Plants somehow fixed the damaged air. They restore it. Now, he didn't know he'd just discovered oxygen. That came a bit later. But he had just found the very first major clue in the mystery of photosynthesis. The case was officially open. So Priestley basically kicked the door down, and a whole bunch of new detectives rushed in, eager to find the next clue. And this next phase of the investigation brings in some new suspects: sunlight, sugar, and even the colors of the rainbow.
The plot really started to thicken here. First, a guy named Jan Ingenhouse added a critical detail. Plants only do this air-restoring trick when they're in the sunlight. Aha! Then, Julius von Sachs figured out what the plants were actually making. It was glucose, a sugar, which they store as starch. But this next clue? Oh, this one was just a work of art.
So T.W. Enkelman had this question: does a plant use all the colors in sunlight equally? To figure it out, he came up with a brilliant plan. He took a prism, split light into a rainbow, and shined it on a strand of algae. But how do you see where the oxygen is being made? Well, he flooded the experiment with special bacteria that absolutely love oxygen.
And just look at this. This is the result. It's so clever. The bacteria became tiny living oxygen detectors, and you can see them swarming like crazy around the parts of the algae getting hit with blue and red light. It was a living, breathing graph that proved, without a doubt, which colors of light power photosynthesis the most. Just beautiful.
Okay, so our detectives are getting close. They know the main ingredients, right? They've got carbon dioxide, water, and light. And they know what's being made: sugar and oxygen. But the exact chemical recipe? That was still a mystery. This is basically what they were working with. It looks pretty straightforward, but there was a huge hidden question in this little formula that nobody had been able to answer. Think about it for a second. You have oxygen atoms in carbon dioxide, CO2, and you have an oxygen atom in water, H2O. So when the plant spits out that fresh oxygen gas, O2, where's it getting it from? Is it breaking apart the carbon dioxide, or is it breaking apart the water?
The key that unlocked this final puzzle came from a really unexpected place: bacteria. A microbiologist named Cornelius van Niel was studying these strange bacteria that did photosynthesis without water. Instead, they used hydrogen sulfide, that rotten egg-smelling stuff, and guess what they released? Not oxygen, they released sulfur. That was the aha moment. Van Niel realized if those bacteria split H2S to release sulfur, then plants must be splitting H2O to release oxygen. The oxygen had to come from the water.
It was a game-changing idea, and later, other scientists proved he was absolutely right by using special tagged water, where the oxygen atom was a heavier version. And sure enough, that heavy oxygen is what came out of the plant. The mystery was solved.
And so this is it.
The final correct balanced equation. It takes 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 12 molecules of water, adds a dash of sunlight, and you get 1 molecule of delicious glucose, 6 leftover water molecules, and 6 molecules of the oxygen we all need to breathe.
So, with the big mystery solved, we can finally do what everyone wants to do at the end of a detective story. We can go inside the factory and see how the machine actually works.
So all of this amazing chemistry is happening inside these things called chloroplasts. They are the tiny green engines packed inside every plant cell, and they are masters of organization.
It's basically a two-step assembly line. First, you have the light reactions. This is the photo part of photosynthesis. It's where the chloroplast traps sunlight and uses that energy to make these little molecular batteries, things called ATP and NADPH. Then you have the carbon reactions. This is the synthesis part. In this step, the chloroplast uses the power from those batteries to grab CO2 out of the air and build it into sugar.
So you've got the power station and the sugar factory all working together in perfect harmony, all inside one microscopic little package. It's just an incredibly efficient system that takes the simplest ingredients, sunlight, water, and air, and turns them into the fuel for almost every living thing.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Our whole detective story, which started with a guy wondering why his candle went out under a jar, led us all the way down to the molecular machines that power our entire planet. It's one of the most beautiful secrets life has ever cooked up.
And that kind of leaves you with a big thought. This little green engine has been running and perfecting itself for billions of years. It's the ultimate sustainable technology. So as we look for ways to power our own future, you have to wonder, what else can it teach us?